Welcome to Nugsville. You're listening to the weekly news and reviews podcast hosted by the Nifty Nuggets. I'm your host, Cryptovius, and joining me this week as ever is Channing with his crystal ball. Channing, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good, thanks. Just to run through some stuff. If it's your first time, make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification and leave a comment below. You can also get us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And for regular updates and giveaways, make sure you follow us on Twitter at NuggetsNifty. Also, just to remember that anything you hear in this show shouldn't be considered financial advice and is for educational purposes only. So yeah, we're going to jump straight into the fryer, get on with the show, and yeah, let's go.
Nuggets Network.
And then what we're going to do is this week we have a special plan. We are going to talk about our experiences, what we've learned from the bull and bear market. So we're going to share our experiences, what we would do differently if we was talking to our past selves, and why we would do it differently. So Channing, I'll let you kick us off with this one. I'll throw this one straight over to you.
Sure. Yeah, the reason is, the CPI number has released 9.1 from the US, and which is not surprising compared. We're talking about last week, and just so many things going on in the world right now with the Russian war crisis, the petrol crisis in the Europe, and a lot more things going on in the world. But so I thought maybe it would be better if we can just talk about our experience rather than just feeding our audience with so many news. And honestly, I don't think, for me, personally, I'm not doing a lot of things these days. I barely open my ledger to do a transaction or a swap or anything, just because I don't think the time is right. So for me, I'm just what I have already bought is staying there. It's for long term, and then unless I'm just keep dollar costing averaging in, and therefore I just don't do a lot of transactions. And I don't recommend my friends to do that as neither. So of course this is not a financial advisor. This is not a financial advice. So I thought better if we can just let everybody know what we have learned from the bull market or the bear market. So gives people more timeless views or feelings rather than just this week, last week, because just nothing is really changing if you look at the market cap or the Bitcoin charts. So yeah, let's have a look at those things. So the biggest thing I would like to ask is, what have you learned? What is the biggest regret you have done or you haven't done in the past bull market? Apparently the bull market we're talking about, the peak was in last year's November or December, and the things were pretty good with NFTs as well. But earlier this year, actually, I think the March was the best of the peak of the NFT world. So what was your biggest regret you have or haven't do?
Ooh, good question. I think for me, I can only say this now looking back, because obviously hindsight is 20/20, as they always say, but it's not it's not selling certain like NFTs at the peak, being patient, waiting for a drop, and then buying back in. I know that's a high risk kind of strategy, but the way I look at it is that a lot of these projects are trying to build something, and by building, it's going to take time. Now, the NFT people within the NFT space are impatient, so things will pump up high and then they'll drop down, and they'll drop down because teams are building, and other people who made it pump up have shifted their attention to something else. So I'll use an example for something that I still hold. I minted a project called Angry Ape Army, and it was kind of like the second, I would say, project that I felt confident in that it was going to go, like, it could be good. So I'm still holding them, but initially they peaked up to like 6 ETH each, And so I've got 2.
Wow.
So if I'd have sold,
And that was when Ethereum was around $4,000.
yeah, around
Not
about
when it's
3,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, around about 3,000. So if you think of it, if there's many options I could have done, I could have sold them, but let's just say I sold them at 5 ETH each. So I would have had 10 ETH, which at the time would have equated to 30k, right? So
Wow.
I could have either transferred that or swapped the ETH into USDC. Not all of it. I could have swapped half of it or some of it. So that would have been like 15, 20k I would have had in USD or USDC. So I could have done that. And then when it comes down to now, a period like this, when it crashes, so to speak, I could have bought 15 Ethereum. Do you know what I mean? Or what I could have done, what actually transpired is that it peaked up to 6, could have sold at 5, so would have had 10 ETH. And then if I'd have just been patient for, I think it was like 3 weeks to a month, it dropped down to like 3 ETH. And then eventually it went down to like 2 ETH because unfortunately a member of the community got scammed and 2 of their apes was sold well below the floor, so that kind of crashed the floor, unfortunately. But you can't anticipate that. But if I'd have waited and had that ETH, I could have bought back 2 more than what I had, so I would have had 4 instead of the 2. So that's how I would have increased my holdings there. And if I was even more patient because of their long-term vision and waited until 4 or 5 months down the line, then I could have bought even more, like I could have had more money left if I'd have converted it, like I said, into the USDC, and then bought the apes that way. So that's something that it's a pattern that's repeated with pretty much every single project that I've seen. There's only a handful of examples that I know of which that probably wouldn't have worked, like Moonbirds and Azuki. I would have had opportunities potentially. I didn't have an opportunity to mint them, but they were within my grasp. Whereas something like Cybercons, Cybercons, bases, that all happened before I entered the space, so I didn't have a chance.
Yeah, you're perfectly right. I mean, I actually know someone who's in the gaming industry, and he told me that he entered the Web3 world, and then he told me that he wants to leave as soon as possible. I was like, why do you want to do it? And he's like, these people are the most impatient people I have ever met. They want news or things every single day, if not like every single week. And then they are like, do you think this is a joke? I mean, building all these things, building a game, building a blockchain, building all these infrastructures are not easy at all. They take years to complete one of these things. And then you see the price action, and you know that it's going to crash at one day because it's just unreasonable. Like it went to parabolic. A lot of projects went to parabolic straight away after launch, even though they said, look, the game is going to come out in about, I don't know, 6 month or 12-month time, because that's normally how a game is supposed to be do. I mean, if the game is coming out in 3 months, you know the game is not going to be good, right? So that's one of the things. Yes, of course. For my personally opinion, my biggest, I mean, this is something we talk about all the time as well, and even that I'm not doing a lot. Like I should have done a lot better, which is controlling the FOMO, which is the fear of missing out that is inside me. And this comes into 2 parts actually. One part is the easiest part to understand is this is what people usually mean when they talk about FOMO, which is you see the price action, you see the price is going, you see a few green candles and you feel like, oh my god, I'm gonna miss the train, I'm gonna jump on the train straight away without thinking, without doing research or anything, and you bought in, and then right after you bought in, the price starts to drop, and then that's normally when we're talking about FOMO. But here, especially in the NFT space, there is another kind of FOMO, which is when you are holding one NFT, whereas you had a 10x gain from your NFT, and the best decision you could make, I mean, the logical decision you make, whatever the NFT you're holding, right? You're supposed to sell.
Yeah.
As a investor or speculator, especially, or a gambler, right? But instead of selling at that point, my view was, you know what? This thing might go to another 10x.
It's gonna go to the moon.
Hold on to it. It's going to the moon, mate. And so, but we all know how the results are. I mean, none of the projects are, except just maybe the 10 projects out there are not declining their trading volume or their floor price. Otherwise, they are all gone down a lot. Even the Bored Ape Yacht Club, they were like 110 ETH when it was like 3,000, right? And right now is a bit around 90 ETH. I think went to around 80 ETH, but ETH price is $1,000 right now. So they've lost at least 2 to 3 quarters of their whole value of the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest thing of now I think about it, because the fear of missing out is really killing us. Because looking back of the times when you have a look at the price chart, when you look at the candles, let's say the price went to 2 Ether to 10 Ether. I mean, if I ask you now, would you be happy to buy it? So let's say the price went from 2 Ether to 10 Ether, right? And would you be happy to buy them around 4 Ether and sell it at 8 Ethers? Would you be happy to do that?
For me, yes.
And it was a yes.
Yeah. that's a
Everybody
hell
will say
yeah.
yes.
Give me a hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it all becomes difficult or different when you are actually holding an NFT.
100%.
And then you caught it from 4 ETH, and then you'll be thinking, oh man, I wish I had bought it 2 days ago, which was around 2 Ethers.
Yeah.
Right? And then when the price comes to 8 Ethers, you think about, what if the price becomes 10 Ethers later on? And then even after you sold it around 8 Ethers and the price went to 10 Ethers, do you feel happy or not happy?
Yeah.
You probably are regretting it because, oh man, if I just waited for another 2 days and I'll have 2 more Ethers. But that is not logical. Right, I'm doing my Spark hand gesture right now, just showing that's not logical. But if I ask anyone, you can do that too. That's great. If you ask anyone, the price went from 2 to 10 Ethers, but would you be happy if you bought from 4 Ethers and then sold it at 8 Ethers? Would you be happy? And then ask yourself that, and do the right decisions. I mean, you can't buy the bottom. We say it all the time. There's no way you can buy from the bottom and sell at the top. But people still fell for the same trick every single day.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the biggest thing I've learned from the past, especially in the NFT space.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny that we both have the similar sort of thing, you know, like we've just spoken about. A couple other things that I've realized from my time in and my entry point into NFTs is I initially started off as like a grinder in the bull market. So you get in and every project is like...
Yeah, who didn't?
Yeah. So every project's kind of like booming. You can just chase a project. The meta at the time was different. You know, it was like invites. So you'd get a pool of people who were like a follow for follow and a like for an accept for an accept. So a join for join, that's what
20 levels, 20 invites.
Yeah, exactly, that sort of stuff. And what I realized is that just be happy with small profits, because there was some projects that I had my eye on, and in order to work my way up to achieving that mint price or buying on secondary, I had to literally grind for a project, get the whitelist, and sell for like 0.1 profit. I would never like undercut the floors, because I'd always try to sell into the volume as the sales are going up. and that way it helped me learn to not FOMO into things, because some of my friends that I met in the space, they had been in there a little bit longer, they had a bit more ETH than I did, so they were jumping into a lot of projects, and just by sitting on the sidelines I could see whether things were successful or unsuccessful. And there's times when I was thinking, oh man, I wish I could jump in and get involved in this play, and then they're telling me, it flopped, it bombed, it didn't go well. And I just thought to myself, wow, if I actually spent that 0.1 ETH and over invested, I would have been wrecked and out of the game. So I don't know if you've got any other learning experiences from your time in the NFT space.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And the one thing I was going to point out, which is quite similar to what you are saying right now, is the when I'm holding one NFT and when I'm not holding an NFT, my mentality is completely different.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about if I don't have it, I watch the chart and I can analyze it without my emotion attached to the chart, and then I can say, okay, this is probably the peak, or this is probably this is when you start to riding on the thing. But when I'm holding the thing, I suddenly become a believer of the project, and I'm like, no, this project's going to the moon. So that is
pack your bag, Channing. We're off.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's another thing that I think I must have told my previous self, because actually, you know what? Right after about 2 months ago, when the CPI was turning into 8.6, I remember we talked about in the show before, and that was absolute bummer because ETH price was around $2,000 and everything was fine. ETH at $2,000 and Bitcoin around 30,000. That was like our mental bottom, right? A mental supporting level. And before that breakthrough, everything was still fine. Everything was intact, right? But right after that happened, you know what happened to my NFT trading journey? I actually made more money. Not money, like ETH, in these 2 months rather than in the bull market. The reason is when that came to, like, when that mentality kick in, I start feeling like, okay, NFT is a scam and Bitcoin is a scam, everything is a scam. So what you have to do is you detach yourself from the mentality, your attachment from how much do you love the project, because you are here not to support any projects or anything, but we're here to make money, right? That's the initial goal. So what happened afterwards is, because I lost my faith in a lot of projects, so the reason I buy in is because I want to sell out. I want to sell it later on a higher profit. So once it's flipped, I sell. Once it's flipped, I sell. So I buy at a lower price, and then when the price goes up, and I'll sell it. So I ended up had more money, more ETH in this period rather than the bull market. But the thing is, in the bull market, if you trade one good NFT, and then your profit would be a lot higher than the bear market. Yeah. So I what I said was wrong. I didn't make more money in the bear market right now, but I made more, like my win rate of the profit taking rate is so much higher than the bull market. Whereas in the bull market, I actually a lot of times I buy at the top.
Yeah.
But in the bear market, because I don't have a lot of faith, I'm just like such a flipper, and then I began to realize how this game's supposed to be running.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy because it feels like if I knew what I know now when I first entered, I would have been in a completely different, like my ETH wallet and MetaMask wallet and all that ledger would have been completely different. Even my NFT portfolio would have been different. But based on what we've just been talking about, It's something that's so simple that I always used to fall into the trap of was never selling pre-reveal. But if you look at most projects, post-reveal, there's always a price dump. So it's like, because one thing you said is that, like, for you, and when I first entered, the main objective in NFTs is to make money. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there aren't some projects that you can believe in, you know, like, for instance, Nifty Nuggets, Angry Ape Army, and a couple of others that may be out there. Everyone's got different projects that fits different criterias. But it's like, if you are just looking to make money and you feel as though a project has the potential to do that, the strategy would be to minimize your risk. So one way in which people try to minimize their risk is like what we've just explained. You may have a project, like my example for Angry Ape Army. If I had it at 6 ETH per ape, and I really believed in the project, if I sold at 5 ETH, I would have had 10 ETH, and when it dropped down to 3 ETH, I could have bought back 2 apes, and I would have had like 4 ETH left. So now I'm playing with like house money. It's free money. So my risk has been taken out of it because I would have made mad gains from the mint price, and therefore I don't have anything to worry about. It's like what we mentioned last week with these free mint plays. People holding, say, Goblin Town up to like 8-10 ETH. The reason why they're able to do that is because they got in with, say, 5 NFTs at a low price, took their profits. So, you know, let's just say they sold one NFT which covered the cost of all 5 of them, their initial investment, and then from then on they can just take profit when they want. So if it does go up to 8-10 ETH and then drops down to 1 ETH and they're still holding, they haven't lost any money because they made their initial investment back. And it's like what you said, if you believe in a project and you just hold, ride the wave up and then ride it down, then you haven't even made money. And if that project does eventually go to zero, which everybody says 99.9% of projects will do, then you've lost your opportunity to make money. And the same thing occurs with like cryptocurrencies. You know, people say, oh, you got to sell high, when it drops you buy back in so you get more for your return and you can take your profits. That's the strategy I try to employ. You know, once again, it's not financial advice, but it just seems like a logical thing to do. And that doesn't mean to say it's going to work all the time. There might be times when I sell those 2 apes and I get 10 ETH and I can't buy back in, but at least I've got 10 ETH. Do you know what I mean? I've got my 10 ETH in my pocket rather than watching it go, oh, if I'd have sold, I would have had 10 ETH. But now if I sell, I only have 4, which is less than double. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's the mentality we just talked about, right? I mean, even if, let's just say, a project that you hold that goes from 2 ETH to 100 ETH, but then would you be happy if you sold around 8 ETH and you took 4 ETH profit? So you got to make your mind clear on that one. So for me, back in the bull market, I'll probably say, no, I'm going to hold it. It doesn't matter if it goes up or down. But when it comes to the bear market right now, like all the fog went off, all the euphoria just went away, and then you feel like, okay, now to think about profit is profit, and then you should always be happy with whatever the profit you have to take them. So I think that's really important lesson I have learned from the last bull market. Second thing I think is really important that we thought decentralization is the key factor of the NFTs, Web3 or Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. But come to think about what's the reason of this bear market or the bull market. It's actually all because of the Fed or the government. Because when the government started the quantitative easing, and they start printing the money, all the asset class started rising their value, Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, all these booms are because of them printing money. And then guess what happened when they stopped printing money? Quantitative tightening is happening. Guess what happened? The bear market comes in. And the price has just we thought Bitcoin is the people's money. Bitcoin is not going to get regulated or whatever. But guess what happened after Powell said, okay, we're gonna raise the interest rate to 0.75%, and especially this time, like the CPI number is 9.1, which is staggering. It's just crazy to see all these. It's more than 9%. What does it mean? That means, what we had last week, what we had last year. Let's say this house is 10 grand, and then last year I could have bought it for 9.1 grand. And then next year I'm going to have to spend 11 grand to buy the same house. And I think, frankly speaking, when you compare to real life stuff, I think 9.1 is like understatement. I think the real thing is much, much more, because I think about I came to Australia when it was 2008, and I think about a lot of things, the price in there, because that's when the price went the price was so much impact to me, because back then I had to calculate the currency rate before buying anything, even a can of Coke or ice cream. So that's why I remember all these prices clearly in my mind. So back then, a soft serve of a coin from the McDonald's was 30 cents.
Wow.
And then think
What's it now?
That was only I think it's 80 cents or something. I can't remember. I haven't bought it for long time, but I doubt if you can buy anything around 30 cents these days.
No chance.
Like you don't even see the coins anymore these days, right? So just think about, and then there was something else we were talking about. The petrol price as well. I mean, the petrol price has at least I think was doubled or tripled from 10 years back as well. And then a lot of other things, just so many things in the real life. Think about the childhood drinks that you had 10 years ago compared to now. It's more than doubled, if not tripled or quadrupled. So I think the inflation is really so huge right now. And then we're talking about the biggest, we're talking about the better countries, right? There are a lot of more countries whose inflation rate is more than 10%, 20%, or Turkish, in Turkey, their inflation rate is 80%.
Oh man,
I've no idea. That's crazy, isn't it? So something that sells $10 now, last year was only $2. Can you imagine that? And the next year it's gonna be $18.
Wow.
And then Argentina is around $80 as well. I mean, these countries are not even small countries.
It's true.
I can even spell their names. So if I can spell some country name, I know they are not a small country, right? And so all of these things are just telling me that maybe we should have rethink about the decentralization, or just detach ourselves from the emotion when Bitcoin was 60k, and everybody was thinking, okay, this is going to be in the moon. We're going to have a super cycle. It's not going to be going down anymore. We're gonna see $1 million of Bitcoin. This and that. Like when the sentiment around cryptocurrency was like that, and you should have. I should have slapped myself in the face and then,
you should have slapped me. You should have slapped me as well.
Okay, next time I'll slap both of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Just like that. You should be realizing what is really happening, because all these things are not a financial bubble, but an actual bubble. Like when someone pokes it, it breaks apart.
Yeah.
Because it's all based on the money that the government is printing out. I mean, of course, they have their value, they have their things. I'm still a long-term believer of the NFT space and the cryptocurrency, but keep in mind that all these things can be manipulated and is manipulated by, or controlled by the money that is printing out from the government. So right now we're eating whatever we had. The consequences we're facing is from that.
Because I mean, they're brilliant points, and I agree with you completely in all aspects of that. And another thing that I've learned, I'm not sure if I'll tell myself, my younger NFT self, not to do this, but because I feel as though by doing what I'm going to mention helped me on my journey to get to the point that I am, and that's influencers and YouTube channels. I don't listen to any anymore. There is one person, guy from Coin Bureau. I like when he does his bits, because he just literally just tells you about the project. He doesn't really make any price predictions or anything like that. Whereas a lot of these shows that I've found, they'll make these price predictions, and yeah, okay, it's probably based on research, but what I've learned is that majority of these, pretty much all of these price predictions, don't come to fruition. So it will be like, oh yeah, buy this token, this is a good buy at this price, blah blah blah. I reckon it's gonna hit $10 or whatever. Say like Cardano, yeah, I think Cardano's gonna hit $10, and then it peaks at 3, and then just plummets and doesn't move. But that's the truth. That's the truth. I remember that happened, and I was lucky because I actually did listen and buy Cardano when it was like below, for me, £1, below £1, and then it went up to like £2 or something like that, and I thought, you know what, that's a 2x, I'm selling, and I sold. And then after I sold, like a few months later, it kind of went, it just dropped and then just didn't move, and all of the other coins were moving. And there's some other coins that are, influencers are saying, oh yeah, it's gonna, like say Ethereum, oh, Ethereum's gonna hit 10-15,000 like by the end of the year, and Bitcoin's gonna be worth 100,000 and all that stuff, and nowhere near it. Nowhere near. So that's why for me,
what about Dogecoin?
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad I never even got into any of these. Well, actually, then again, if you did, you could have made a lot of money from Dogecoin if you'd have bought in super early, and then when all that influencer pump comes from like Elon Musk, and then you just sell and take your profits. But what tends to happen is that people would probably do what we just described. You buy loads of Dogecoin, it goes up, and you think, whoa, yeah, I've made like, 10x, I'm gonna make 100x and all that, and then you hold on.
100x, yeah, exactly.
And then it drops back down to 10x or below, and you're like, oh, I should have sold. But yeah, so for me, it's like, I never, I would say to my younger self, don't take the advice of influencers, which is why you'll never hear me talk about a price prediction for anything. I just deal in facts. If you see it go up and you're happy with the profits, take the profit. That's a fact. Like, you'll secure the profit, so you can't argue with that. There's certain things that are trends, like selling pre-reveal. There's always the caveat that it may run away from you post-reveal, but the odds are, in my opinion, if you sell pre-reveal, you're going to be able to buy back in at a lower price and have secured some profits. So that's why I'll never say, oh, do this, buy that, buy this, because I don't know everything, and I don't feel as though it's it would be completely truthful. Because another thing that I've realized is that when people talk about, say, buying these tokens, these coins and stuff like that, it's mainly coins, to be honest. These people are pumping in thousands and thousands of like dollars. I haven't got that, so So, like, if I have £100 and I make like 10%, that's £10. But if I've got like 100,000 and I'm making 10%, that's a lot more. So yeah, of course it's gonna be like worthwhile. But I don't have that money, so it's like I can't play that same game. Although like, but whereas somebody else who has like their currency might be like weaker than the pound or the dollar, £10 might be a hell of a lot of money. So they can play that game. So it's all about your circumstance and what you're in for, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the risk tolerance as well.
Yes.
That's why we never do the financial advice, because everyone's risk tolerance is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's say one NFT is worth about 2 ether, and to someone who's a whale have 100 ETH in their wallet, that's probably just 2%, right? That's not a lot of money. But for a lot of, let's say, uni students, that will probably, especially when they bought a peak, that was $8,000 for 2 ethers. That's probably their whole life savings for a 18-year-old or 19-year-old. So it's all different from people to people. So don't listen to any financial advices you hear online, on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It's just not helpful at all.
I use the strategy that you mentioned before I even knew that you would mention it, and it's like paper trading. Like writing down the trade. So when these influencers on YouTube and stuff like that would say, buy, I don't know, Phantom, it's at a great price. So make a note of how expensive Phantom is, and then see how it performs. And this comes back to my situation when I was in NFTs and that. I couldn't afford to waste ETH and money trying to chase these things. I had to make sure. So by being in that sort of situation, I'm not saying I'm poor or anything, but it's just I allocated a certain amount of money that I was going to use for Web3.
Yeah, you just said you admit it.
Yeah, I was poor. I was from the streets, and then crypto changed my life, and I made millions and millions and all that nonsense. That's why I got into it, because I hear all these wild stories. But the point I was trying to make was that for me being cautious and my having a low risk tolerance, and because of my circumstance, I was able to hear these influencers say, "Oh, buy Phantom, buy Cardano and all these other coins because it's going to hit this certain price." Watch, and then see that it doesn't. It will have. Normally, what would happen is that there'll be a little bump, and then it will drop down again, and it might go below what they had originally said to buy in at, or it might just revert back to the price it was before, or similar. So then that made me realize a lot of these guys and girls nobody knows.
Yeah, if they know, they wouldn't tell you. Right?
Precisely.
That's for sure. Like if I know the price action, I wouldn't tell anyone about that.
Yeah. Or you would tell them late, so you would get in early. Like these people, this is what I imagine. Like they'll have like inside info or whatever it may be. Get in early, talk about it, basically shilling, because that used to happen. Like pumping and dumping. So many people got called out for it, and that's why I don't think it happens so much now. I'm sure there is going to be something, but there was another experience I had. It happened maybe about 2-3 months. It was probably just before the crash you mentioned, when Luna went skew whiff and went down the toilet. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody tweeted like a project called Cyberfrogs. It was like, Cyberfrogs gonna make it, and then everyone just aped in for this Cyberfrogs, right? Even I was trying to buy in. No, seriously, I succumbed to FOMO because I wanted to buy in and then flip, like just insta flip when I made like a 50%, well, not 50%, but if I bought at like $100 and I was able to sell for $150, that's what I was looking to do. So anyway, I remember I was on OS and I clicked to buy this Cyberfrog at like 0.22. I remember this, right? Tried to buy it at 0.22. It was processing. My transaction failed because somebody beat me in the gas war. And then I
At a
thought,
higher gas.
yeah, and I thought, screw this. I'm going to go out for my run or go to the gym, whatever it was I was planning to do. I come back, and then later on, the Cyberfrog's floor has crashed, absolutely crashed. And I just thought, wow, I would have lost like well over 0.2. Well, okay, around about. If I tried to beat the gas wars, I probably would have had to buy in at 0.3. So I would have at least lost 0.2.
Mm-hmm.
For aping in without doing any reason, because of a person with loads of followers on Twitter said Cyberfrog's gonna make it, you know.
It's funny you mentioned that because I believe I have one of the Cyberfrogs as well. I do, because when you said Cyberfrogs, I was like, hang on, I think I have one of those as well. I think I bought in. I don't know what time I bought in, but I definitely paid like not a lot of money. I think it was 0.02 something. That's the time I bought it. But it just it didn't play out well because everybody was saying that the art is nice, the vibe is nice, the Discord community is nice, and one of my friends was like, do you really think all these people, all these DJs, they know what art is? Like, come on, like they don't have no idea what art is.
Yeah.
Or the community, like once the profit, like if the price is going up, the community is going to be hyped up, and if the floor price is going down, and then nobody's going to be active anymore. There's no community whatsoever later on. So I just don't expect like art and community. Those are the things like, you know, least reliable, at least. Yeah. Unless I think, especially for NFT projects, like what I'm looking for now is to get into the projects that are community backed, which is a key factor. Not backed by a game, not backed by a roadmap or a merge, you know, all these things, but backed by a community that is actually doing things. So the thing is, a lot of hyped projects, they are going to be gone after the bull market is over, and as we have seen already. But if we're seeing some projects that you know, that they are building a community, like real community, like they have the things, they have actual roadmap. We're gonna do this, we're gonna go do that, we're gonna set up the real life meetups and all these things. And that means there is a real community that is not only for the profit, and that is the project that I'm looking into buy these days, especially when you know, Ether is on discount as well. So those are the projects, regardless the bull market or bear market, they're gonna be here. That's the things I'm gonna looking for.
Yeah, it's true, and those they are hard to find. I mean, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people like to ask, what's the value of said project, blah blah blah, like, and they ask a lot of questions which are related to their bags rather than the actual project itself. You know, say for instance, if you bought an art project, people will be like, what's the value of it? What's the value of it? Why should I hold it? How's it going to make me money? But it's like, you think about, you know what you said about projects, people being impatient and people wanting updates all the time, all day, every day. I think of, say, TV programs. So recently, there's like Stranger Things 4, season 4. Now, people watch it, but do they constantly badger the producers, the Duffer brothers, going, what's happening? Are you filming? What scene have you filmed? What are you doing with the merchandise? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with that? No, they just they wait for a year or however long it is, and then when it drops, they come back. And that's what I think will happen with good NFT projects. They'll release, do their thing, they will kind of be immune to the badgering of people, because in my opinion, those that kind of badger the project, asking, oh, what's next, what's this, what's coming, blah blah blah, all they're thinking about is their bags. They just want to buy in and try and offload it for a higher price, which there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong, but you have to just be aware of what the actual project is that you're buying. You know, it's like, say for instance, Nifty Nuggets, you know, there's all these plans like the Nifty Academy, and Nifty Academy is going to be like an education resource center for basically people to learn and improve their knowledge within the space, be it beginner, intermediate and advanced. So that's going to take time. So it's like buying a nugget and going straight away, oh, when's the Nifty Academy launching, blah 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 blah, and then you sell it. But then when it actually does launch, or if and when it launches, then, you know, people will come back and they'll be like, oh crap, lots of people want to use this, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why we say that they only look for the community-backed NFTs these days.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Channing, I think it's going to be time to wrap up now. I mean, it's always enjoyable having these kind of conversations, and hopefully the listeners out there would have gained some insights just to how to kind of prepare themselves better for the bull market, and when they are in the bull market, kind of what to do, which is take profits, and that can never be considered bad, a bad thing to do, in my opinion. But before we go, make sure you subscribe, like the channel, share it with your friends, hit the bell notification. Also, make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Nuggets Nifty, and if you want, you can listen back to us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. So so I'll let Channing say goodbye, and then I'll say goodbye too.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, guys. Goodbye, and see you next time.
Yeah, all right. Goodbye, folks, and remember, stay crispy.
Stay crispy.